Well, hello there, humans, bees, earthlings, whoever you are, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, and if you're lucky enough to be doing it too. I'm Bushka on Blitz, and today I'm going to give you a quick breakdown on the T54 versus the T55A. A lot of people have requested some kind of video or feedback on the T55A, and I've been in a really interesting position with this tank. I had it as a super test tank, but I didn't drive it. And you might think that that's a little bit dismissive and a little bit poor form on my part to have access to those tanks and not drive them. But the thing is, there is a part of my NDA with Wargaming which basically does not allow me to publish footage of super test tanks. And it's one of the reasons why I've got all these games in the K91 that will never get published as footage because they were done when the tank was on super test. Not also, which is another reason they slightly change stats on the tanks between super test and live release. So that in mind, I didn't go out of my way to do videos of the T55A before it was released on live. But I've got to say, I was pretty stunned at the price tag of the 55A. So I looked at some of the footage that people have sent in and done a little bit of deductive reasoning and looked at some games of this tank, the 54, and I'm actually going to do another video on the T54 because it's been a while since I've driven the 54 and it's one of life's little guilty pleasures that I do like driving Russian mediums. And it should come as no surprise that I've come to the conclusion that the 54 and the 55A are bloody similar, at least in terms of gun and mobility and shape, which is pretty cool. But rest assured, I think the 54 is still a better tank, and that's the tech tree tank, and so it should be. I mean, let's be honest. But the price tag is what stuns most people. Like, I think the 55A, straight off the bat, is a very worthy tier 9 medium. It ticks a lot of the boxes, and I still think the 54 is an incredibly good tank, even after all this time when it's been nerfed quite a bit by both mechanics differences with the game, i.e. Pramo getting lowered in terms of DPM, and the equipment system coming in, which really emphasized Armour as a positive and the ability to enhance Armour, all these kind of things, and the removal of binoculars, the binocular / camo net synergy that was really broken for a lot of people. Those have made the 54 less powerful in terms of its peers. And the removal of +2 -2 matchmaking, by the way, like, this thing used to run up against comets with heat that did over 300 millimeters a pen and didn't really seem to get affected by spaced armor. And you could fire heat for days and just do 3,000 damage per minute, no problems whatsoever. And yeah, it was ridiculous. Its armor was also better back in the day. So the 54 has copped a lot of nerves because it was the god tank. It was the tank that you drove if you just wanted to seal club everything. It was like the best tier 9 and one of the best tier 10s all rolled up into one barrel. You could run 2 of them in platoon. It was broken. So it's no real shock then that they've finally copied the 55 and copied the 54 and made the T55A, which is, it's a great game design. It's one of the better tanks in the game. It's great fun to play. It works surprisingly well still after all the nerfs, and it's super popular with the player base. So there's no real shock that they've finally made a premium tank at tier 9 and it's based on the T54. The real shock is the sticker. Sticker shock is a thing with this tank, man. Like, it's over $100 for some of the stuff on the Australian, on the Asian server. And I'll get you the exact pricing up for the Asia server bundle. And that's a bit disappointing. Like, it's obviously a lot, but one of the things that Wargaming did express when we're when we're in Bovington for Tank Fest was what they are going to be looking at doing is making things more expensive when they first come out and then decreasing the price gradually over time, like the second and third release of the tanks. So basically it's like buying a new pair of Nikes. If you go and buy them the day they come on sale, then they're going to cost you more money. If you buy them a couple of weeks later, a couple of months later, when there's another brand out or there's another model out, they're going to get cheaper and cheaper and cheaper. Now, I've not seen any mechanic for this within the game thus far, but that certainly does seem like it's the way it's going at the moment because they can't really get more expensive. The bundle at the moment for the T55A is $125 for all the bells and whistles on the Asian server, and that's ludicrously expensive. Like, it's just so much money. But let's talk about the tanks themselves now. That's the 54 as seen from the T54's gun, the 201mm pen gun that most of the people use. That's the T55A seen from the same gun. So you can see straight away the armor profile, it's not nearly as good. The 55A's armor profile, even when angled up, isn't as good as the T54's armor profile. By the way, this is the Armour Inspector app. If you don't have the Armour Inspector app, go grab it. It's red hot and raving, and I do support it. I pay for it. 54 is just a much better armor profile. You can see effective armor there of 244, effective armor of like 190 on the front when angled. But you can see here my mate Jung, I don't know how you pronounce your name, dude, another one of these Norwegian tankers. But I believe it's Jung, however it is, we're going to call you Phil. Phil's going to do very well here, and Phil's in the T55A. And the similarities in the gameplay between the two tanks is hilarious. So similar. The 55A runs well, there's two different guns, basically, to get the 54 that you run. The most common and the most popular is the 100mm D10T2C. And that's the one that's copied here by the T55A. It runs the 100mm Panzer Cannon D10T2SL/56. It's a 100mm gun. And it does the same alpha damage that you get on your 54, your Object 140s, your T62As, and nearly 3,000 DPM. So gun handling and power-wise, it's just great. It's got the same penetration, though, as the second gun that you get on the T54, which is the gun that I generally run the T54 with. And that is the 100mm D54. That has 290mm of pen. So happy days. If you're running that gun and you're used to running that gun, then you're going to love the gun on the T55A because it is exactly that same gun, which is great. Wonderful stuff. It's got a better pen outlook, which is great, and it does though less DPM on the T54. You drop about 140 DPM on the T54. The T55A keeps the DPM of the better DPM T54 gun and gives you the better pen as well. What's the downside on that? Well, there's no downside. It's got the good dispersion, good aim time, good DPM of the favourite T54 gun, but it's also got that extra 18mm of pen. That means that you've got a better gun on the T55A, but your armor profile is not nearly as good. I still think the T54 is a better tank, and I don't think it's as close as some people think, but for all that, this tank performs. And if you're paying the kind of money that they're asking for this tank, it would want to perform because it's more expensive than a Chieftain Mark 6, which is crazy considering that's a tier 10. And I'm on record as saying that it's cheap, the price that they charge for tanks like the Chieftain. Hear me out on this one. If you, like me, have ground 15 or 16 lines to tier 10 and got 30,000 battles on your basic account, and then another 20,000 battles on the various Wargaming contributor accounts and AU accounts and NA accounts that I run, you would know that it takes a long time to grind a tank to tier 10. Legitimately takes a long time. To be able to purchase a tank at tier 10 with full equipment and do it for like $100, $150, I mean, you could just spend 6 hours working in McDonald's and get that money. And it would be a lot quicker for you if all you really want is tier 10 gameplay than grinding a line like the 215B line or the T110E5 line, getting a Chieftain Mark 6. I mean, I legitimately don't want tier 10 tanks to be sold as premiums. I don't want them to be sold as crate tanks. I don't want them to be sold ever. But if they're going to be there and I have to have an opinion on the cost, I would say that the Chieftain and such is some of the best value tanks you can possibly buy in the game. I think this is not the same. Tier 9 for me does not have the same cachet. You are paying out the nose for a tank that is, for all intents and purposes, already in the game and it's a really good tank in the game, and it's better than the premium version of the tank you buy. This doesn't seem to make huge bundles of cash. If they're giving it to you for free, fantastic tank. If you're a collector, I mean, you're going to buy it anyway. And if you're looking for a tier 9 tank and you really want a tier 9 tank because you want to be able to platoon with a mate or something, and you don't have that T54 line and you really want the T54, then I can see it being valuable and worthwhile for you. But that's a very specific set of circumstances. My final opinion, good tank, little Exy, only buy it if it is absolutely your cup of tea. I hope that video clarified some of that, and you can see the good battle from Jung Iron, from NO1R. I'm Bushka. Look after yourselves, and as always, stay safe on the battlefield. Bye for now.